In our next section, we're going to talk about mitigating the spoofing attacks. The first spoofing attack is DHCP spoofing, and we can use DHCP snooping feature to mitigate the DHCP spoofing attacks. DHCP snooping is a series of techniques applied to improve the security of a DHCP infrastructure. When DHCP servers are allocating IP addresses to the clients on the local area network, DHCP snooping can be configured on LAN switches to prevent malicious or malformed DHCP traffic or rogue DHCP servers. In addition, information on hosts which have successfully completed the DHCP transaction is accrued in a database of bindings, which may then be used by other security or accounting features. In the DHCP spoofing attack, here we have a hacker and here we have a client. If this client wants to receive a DHCP setting, this is going to make a DHCP request. And if hacker replies to the DHCP request instead of the real DHCP server, this guy can be the default gateway for the client, and the client can send all information to the bad guy. And here's how we can configure the DHCP snooping. First, we need to activate the DHCP snooping on the global mode by using the IPDHCP snooping command. And second, we need to select the VLANs that we want to implement the DHCP snooping. Then we need to activate the DHCP option 82 by using IPDHCP snooping information option command. Then on the interface level, we need to define IPDHCP snooping limit rate command for the access ports, which defines the number of DHCP packets that can be accepted in the port at that moment. And fifth, on the interface mode again, on the trunk port, we need to use IPDHCP snooping trust command, and that's it. And let's take a look to the IP source card. IP source card is a security feature on Cisco devices that restricts IP traffic on the IP source interfaces by looking at the DHCP snooping binding database or manually configured IP source binding data. In order to use the IP source card feature, the DHCP snooping feature must be enabled on the switch. That's the most important thing, guys. Please pay attention to that. When the IP source card feature is enabled, the switch intercepts all IP traffic except for those allowed by DHCP snooping on the interface. The IP source binding table consists of a statically assigned IP binding information with the binding data assigned by DHCP. This table contains the IP addresses and MAC addresses corresponding to the IP addresses and the VLAN information of those addresses. We have two filters that we are using in the IP source card. Source IP address filter. IP address is filtered based on the IP address of the source. Only IP addresses matching the IP addresses in the IP source binding list are allowed. And the second is source IP and MAC address. As you can understand from its name too, IP traffic is filtered based on the IP and the MAC address of the source. And here's the configuration of the IP source card. That's pretty straightforward. You get into the interface mode and you type IP verify source and IP verify source port security commands. And to verify the IPGS configuration, you can use the show IP verify source command. And let's take a look to the dynamic ARP inspection now, which mitigates the ARP spoofing and ARP poisoning attacks. Dynamic ARP inspection is a security feature that verifies the ARP protocol requests and responses in a network. ARP allows hosts within a layer 2 broadcast domain to communicate. It does this by mapping an IP address to the individual host's MAC address. If a particular host wants to send information to another host but does not have the second host's MAC address in its ARP cache, it sends a message to all hosts through the domain seeking that information. The second host then responds with its MAC address. These transmissions can be vulnerable to man-in-the-middle attacks, and dynamic ARP inspection stops these attacks by intercepting all ARP requests and responses and dropping packets with invalid IP to MAC address bindings. This approach ensures that only valid ARP requests and responses are passed through. And to configure the dynamic ARP inspection, as you can see that there is this snooping configuration as well. And we need to define the IP ARP inspection and the VLAN that we want to inspect. And we go under the interface mode and we type the IP ARP inspection trust command. Pretty straightforward.